Hello and welcome to another episode of Tang Soo Do Focus, a podcast concerning all things related to the Korean martial art of Tang Soo Do. I am Master Steve Paterini, your host, and today is a very special episode number 10, as well as the first time I am conducting an interview with another martial artist, practitioner, and instructor of Tang Soo Do. And I am very pleased to bring you this interview with my personal instructor of over 25 years, Master Kwan Steve Voelker. So please enjoy the interview and thank you for listening. All right, we are here with Kwan Steve Voelker, founder of Middlesex Tang Soo Do Academy in Old Saybrook, Connecticut, and also founder of Pyong Hwa Kunin Association of Tang Soo Do. And I am very delighted to welcome you to this episode of Tang Soo Do Focus, the first episode where I'm actually interviewing a high-level practitioner of the art, and I look forward to doing many more of these in the future. Master Voelker, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Master Paterini, for having me.
I basically wanted to start kind of at the beginning, and you were born in what year, sir?
1960.
Okay, and you grew up in?
My dad was in the military,
Okay.
so actually first almost 5 years I was up in Maine. He was stationed at Loring Air Force Base in Maine, so really up top of Maine basically. So early childhood memories are, snow. But then when my dad retired, we moved down to Connecticut. So that's really where I grew up, if you will.
Okay. And how did you get interested in martial arts in the first place? What are your earliest memories of being aware of, this would have been in the 60s or early 70s.
Sure.
What got you going in this?
Certainly, thinking about the 60s, things like the Green Hornet, watching on TV,
Sure.
even, the old James Bond movies, were interesting. You'd watch the fight scenes, and there was cool stuff going on with karate chops and all of that. Just in contact between two people was always kind of interesting. So even watching boxing, professional wrestling, that was something that was interesting to me. I can remember watching WOR TV out of New York late Saturday nights when I was like 9 years old, and waiting till midnight to be able to turn on and watch the wrestlers, and all of that was exciting and interesting to me. So combat type activities and arts were certainly interesting. So as kids, we all wrestled and did mock fighting and everything else. And I can remember, having boxing gloves on in the front yard of the house, and we just tool on each other back and forth with these gigantic boxing gloves. So there was a lot of that certainly growing up.
Kind of roughhousing. Now, were you an athletic kid? Did you participate in sports
Yeah.
outside of martial arts?
I did. I wasn't. I was definitely athletically inclined. Football was my game.
Okay.
I certainly tried to play baseball. Wasn't. I enjoyed backyard baseball and stuff like that. But I really wasn't a baseball player, if you will. Certainly playing football was important to me. Started when I was 9 years old playing Little League football, if you will, and continued on with that right until I got to high school.
Okay. Where and when did you start training in Tang Soo Do? To talk about your origin story in the art.
Sure. Really, as far as martial arts specifically, it wasn't Tang Soo Do. It was Kempo, and it was generally I was probably about 15 years old, and friends from school, from high school, a little bit older, had friends who did Kempo, from Middletown Kempo, in fact. And so learning how to do some kicking techniques and things of that nature were introduced to me. It wasn't in Clinton, Connecticut, where I live and have lived for all these years. There wasn't any martial arts programs that were active, little small town community. But 1978 at Clinton Gymnastics, an instructor started a program. So it was a satellite program. It was actually two people, Charlie Ferraro and Roger Peachroy, who were partners out of West Haven, Connecticut, and they started a club or a satellite program at Clinton Gymnastics.
Okay, so you would have been 17, 18 years old.
I was 18. I was 18 years old when I officially started training in Tang Soo Do.
Okay, and what did those first few years look like? You were, again, in a gymnastics studio where they just basically leased out space or rented out.
Yeah, and pretty excited. The classes were longer than what we normally do today, so they were scheduled as 2-hour classes, but generally they were probably more like 2.5-hour classes. At that location, there was only classes twice a week, so we augmented that by jumping in the car and driving to West Haven and training at the main studio in West Haven. Classes were fundamentally very hard. A lot of review of hip rotation and blocks and stances and things of that nature. We did a lot of forms. We certainly worked on our traditional one-steps and self-defense, and all of that leading up to let's spar, because that's really what we wanted to do. We did all those other things. They were necessary. We didn't mind doing them, but we also knew the cherry on top of that was, hey, we get to spar at the end. And that was always the joyful part for me. In fact, so much so that class would be over and we'd stick around and spar for another half an hour because that was what we wanted to do.
Having too much fun.
Too much fun.
Very good. So where or when did you get your black belt? And talk a little bit about your Dan test. And that would have been what, I'm assuming, took 4 years of training thereabouts?
Well, I tested in the spring of '82.
Okay.
I traveled with classmates of mine. There was 5 of us that tested for our Chodan out of our studio together. And we traveled down to Springfield, New Jersey to really the headquarters of the U.S. Suba, at the time, U.S. Kwan Federation for Tang Soo Do. So it was Master Wong's dojang down in Springfield, New Jersey. And there were other folks from around the region that were there, panel of senior masters, Korean masters that were there to oversee the testing. It was, I'm not going to say it was easy. It wasn't easy, but we were well prepared. So because of that, all the tests that we took that led up to it, all of our red belt tests were very challenging, very difficult. We were held to a high standard, a high level, and we were prepared. But again, when you're put in that situation, obviously there's nerves, there's excitement that goes along with it. So yeah, there were those challenges. You're interacting with some people that you weren't familiar with. So you're used to partnering up with somebody from your own dojang, but now you're networking with somebody else. So you learn to kind of adapt and overcome in those situations. But it was a tremendous experience.
About how many people were on the floor for that test? If you
recall? I mean, the floor was full, so I would venture there was 40 or 50 people.
Okay, so rather large.
It was a large group, yeah.
Okay, very good. And so, needless to say, you passed your Dan test and received rank.
Yep.
And you continued training with West Haven Karate. Like, what was your affiliation at the time?
Yeah, I actually had the opportunity to be instructing in classes at West Haven Academy of Karate. So I carried on doing that. I was instructing part-time. It wasn't a job. It was just a love to get out there and to teach some classes. And that was really what I felt was my responsibility as well, to get out there and to share and to help develop the next groups coming up.
So that was kind of where the genesis of you becoming a martial arts instructor versus a martial arts student.
Sure.
at some point you founded your own school. So what was the time frame between getting your black belt and teaching for some other people and then starting your own academy?
Sure. Probably it was a bit of a pipe dream that to be a studio owner. It wasn't something that really you would think about, but it wasn't something that was really concrete. I mean, while I was in college, I was a business major, and then I converted to a physical education major. So I thought I'd be a teacher. And then through that process, I guess I realized that those two things going together worked quite well to helping me to understand what it would be to be a business owner. I had been teaching for a while, and I had promoted to second dan, and I was working at the time, and not in my career yet, but was working just to try to make ends meet. And an opportunity came my way, and I went and did a demonstration for this group of kids in Old Lyme in a church basement. It was received fairly well, but subsequently out of it, a school was established, but it wasn't for me. It wasn't my time, if you will. And that was fine. And I kind of carried on with what I was doing. And then again, another opportunity came my way. There was a Tang Soo Do program that was being taught in Old Saybrook at Shoreline Gymnastics. Carl Cavrell was the owner of the business, and his partner at the time happened to be a black belt in Tang Soo Do with a different organization that we weren't a part of. They weren't part of us. It was the Cheezic Tang Soo Do organization. And his partner moved and left the state. So there was an opportunity to kind of take over a program. And I was reached through different connections and channels, and had an interview and met with Carl Cavrell, and decided that this was my opportunity, and proceeded forward with taking charge of that program.
Okay. And so you were working out of the Shoreline Gymnastics?
Yes.
Yeah,
so we had a nice space there. So it was a sublet that I was dealing with him. It was a program that was a part of his business model, but I told him that I wasn't going to work for him, that I would take over the program and I would pay him rather than him paying me. And because he didn't know anything about martial arts, thought it was a good move, and it worked out quite well for both of us. So I established my foot in Old Saybrook with that program.
Okay. And what was the next step after that?
Well, we were there at his location for 3 years.
Okay.
And this school developed and grew. I was pretty pleased with what we were doing. It reached a point in time where I felt like I needed to get my own brick and mortar location. And I had a good relationship with Carl Cavrell. So when I said, hey, it's time for me to move, he was like, fine, and wished me well. And we found a location in Old Saybrook, and we established our own base of operation, Center Road in Old Saybrook.
Okay. You remember about what year that would have been?
So it was about 3 years after I started. So it was 88, 89 or so. Yep. It seems like it was the end of 88 and the early part of 89 that I opened up at the Center Road location.
Okay. And so you were there for some time.
We were there for several years and continued to grow our base. We're happy with the facility, but it wasn't. It was off the beaten path a bit. So just in terms of marketing and having people recognize where we were, we needed to get into a more populated kind of space in town. So after about 3 years there, we moved to Porter Plaza on Main Street in Old Saybrook, and continued our program there.
Where the old movie theater was.
The movie plaza was a great place with a lot of traffic, and right in the heart of Old Saybrook.
Great. Okay. And I know when I first started training, it would have been at that academy or that location there in Porter Plaza, but there was also what we referred to as the mothership in Clinton. So talk about the genesis of the large space you had there, because that seemed you were there for some time as well.
Well, Clinton actually started in Madison, believe it or not.
Okay.
Again, it was a satellite facility, Hammond Acid Health and Racquetball Club. I had a relationship there, and we established really in early '86. So '85, I opened up in Old Saybrook as a satellite program, a sublet, and then I did the same thing in Madison. And we were there for some time at the Hammond Acid Health and Racquetball Club. We had a nice space. We had 1,600 square foot space, which was significant. That was the room we trained in, and then we had access to the locker facilities and of this building. Worked out quite well. And then again, after a time, I felt we needed to move to our own location, so we ended up in Clinton. Again, just off of Route 1 in Clinton. So we were in Post Office Square. We had a space there. It was an older building, wood floors that were buckled, but it was ours. And we worked there for a while until a space opened up just around the corner. It happened to have been an old Cumberland Farms store, and that was the space that I moved into in Clinton. It was right on Route 1, and if you will, the mothership. Saybrook, quite honestly, was always the mothership.
Okay.
But
Smaller
because
space, though, as I recall.
but yes, it was
Clinton,
smaller,
yeah.
and because I lived in Clinton, we were well established in Old Saybrook. I had a strong staff of instructors working for me at the Old Saybrook studio.
Gotcha.
So it left me the opportunity to grow and develop the Clinton location and build and establish a staff there.
Sure. Okay. And then we are sitting here in on Route 1 in Old Saybrook now.
Yes.
This 16-something here. What's the address?
1363.
1363
Boston Post
Yeah.
Road. Yes. So this has been about 20 years or so, maybe a little bit more. And our Old Saybrook location, or our Clinton location, opportunity arose here in Old Saybrook, and subsequently at the same time, lease situations in Old Saybrook and Clinton developed, so that I went, you know what, maybe it's time for me to just consolidate. And I did. So we brought all of our members from both locations into this one space.
Very good. Yeah. And this is kind of, again, now this would be the mothership for sure.
And of course, this is the mothership. Yes. And you know, it's a good sized building. I mean, we have 3,500 square foot building here, and we have a significant amount of space for our classes. We're able to run multiple classes if necessary.
Nice. So, about that time as well, you had been affiliated with the World Tang Soo Do Association through Master Bodwin.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to speak about that, and then the transition into forming Pyong Hwa Kunin,
Sure.
which is our current association, and of course you are the founder of it.
Absolutely. So initially, when I started in Tang Soo Do, we were connected to the United States Tang Soo Do Kwan Federation. So my promotions, my testings from GUP level up to second dan level are all through that organizational group, which is the U.S. branch of Great Grandmaster Wong Key's organization, Kwan. And so when I opened up my school in '85, it caused a bit of a rift, and so I had to move on. And subsequently, it was an easy connection for me with Master Bodwin. I had known Master Bodwin for a number of years since I was a GUP. He actually was an instructor to one of my instructors, and so it was an easy connection for me with him. And I joined the Academy of Karate as a student, and the Academy of Karate in Waterbury, Connecticut, Bodwin Academy of Karate, was a part of the World Tang Soo Do Association. And this was, again, the end of 1985. So in 1986, there was the first World Championships for the World Tang Soo Do Association. And Master Bodwin said, "Hey, Steve, there's a big tournament, why don't you go?" And I was like, absolutely. So we we sent off applications to participate in the tournament. Myself and I had a team of about a dozen teenagers who were all primed and ready to go. And I got an official letter from Grandmaster Jay Chul Shin saying that he was very pleased that I was interested in coming to the event, but I couldn't because I wasn't a member. And so subsequently I said, well, what do we have to do to become members? And we joined the World Tang Soo Do Association so that we could go to their first World Championships down in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Neat. And so then you were affiliated with World for about 10 years maybe? Or
I was with World Tang Soo Do from 1986 until about 1998.
Okay.
It was the early part of really the latter part of 1997 where it was time for me to move on. And it was nothing really negative about the World Tang Soo Do Association. It was necessary for my business model to evolve, to develop in the direction I needed it to go. It was time for me to move forward. I had been promoted to third dan and then fourth dan within that organization, so I was master level. I resigned from the organization on really good terms as far as I was concerned. But it's a closed organization, so once you leave, you generally didn't have the opportunity to network. But thankfully, I still had a really great relationship with Master Bodwin, and was able to still continue to go to events and be around him and activities that were not officially World Tang Soo Do, but still was filled with a lot of World Tang Soo Do folks.
Okay. Before we dive a little deeper into Pyong Hwa Kunin, I almost forgot, Kodanja. So talk about that a little bit. So how long you trained, what that experience was like, some of the people you tested with, I know you're still close with to this day.
Sure.
Can you speak a little to that experience?
Yeah. So master's testing within the World Tang Soo Do Association, well, we had to travel down to Florida. We had to spend some days down there. There are certainly other Kodanja experiences out there that are quite remarkable, but this was an intense opportunity to get together and train with folks. It was a long weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And, through that whole process, you're just going night and day. It's something that you look on very fondly. There's definitely a lot of relationships that you develop through that process. And as you mentioned, I have a very close personal friend of mine, Master Efren Valentin, who we actually tested for our third dans together. He's a few years younger. He's 10 years younger than I am. So we tested for third dan together, and he was an interesting young man, and I really enjoyed spending some time working with him. And then we had the opportunity to test for fourth dan together. And again, to this day, we still network and interact and do events and activities together. So it's an opportunity to bond. I think those special experiences that you go through. We step back and we look at cup testing and the folks that you tested with. When I tested for my Chodan, it was a group of 5 that I tested for my first degree black belt with me, and you maintain those relationships. It's like graduating high school or college or what it might be, and then the same thing holds true along the way. So getting to that upper echelon of the master's level, the Kodanja, and the folks that you interact with, and the fellowship that you have there, it becomes lifelong. So it's a really interesting experience and opportunity that we get to share together.
Nice. So again, we get to the late 90s. You're obviously well established in business for so many years. You've settled on this particular property here in Old Saybrook, and you've again, I guess, amicably left the World Tang Soo Do Association and formed Pyong Hwa Kunin. First of all, it's just Pyong Hwa Kunin to you means what, or what would be the rough translation? I know Korean and English don't always translate precisely, but speak to that, please.
Sure. So when I was trying to decide what I wanted to call the style of Tang Soo Do. Obviously, it's rooted in Muda Kwan, but it certainly has my own personal influences. And so when I was looking for a name, well, Peaceful Warrior was kind of the name that I was looking at, and how was I going to describe that? And again, yes, it's more of a very liberal translation, I would say, by calling it Pyong Hwa Kunin, and Pyong meaning peaceful. Again, Kunin could be translated as soldier or army, or loosely warrior. When I shared those two words in conjunction with actually the wife of one of my students, she said, well, she understood when I was speaking to her about what I was looking to do, and she said, well, you really should call it Pyong Hwa Kunin. Means, again, basically that you're striving for peace through this warrior's path. And I said, well, that's exactly what I wanted to say. So nice. That's how the name evolved to Pyong Hwa Kunin Tang Soo Do. And again, it is rooted in Tang Soo Do, Muda Kwan, by and large, but I have other experiences that I bring into it, other areas that I had trained in and put a lot of focus and energy in. And so I bring some of that flavor into this process, to what we call Pyong Hwa Kunin. Now, at that time, this was, again, 98, I had several schools that were Middlesex Tang Soo Do Academy. And I also had students that looked to me for guidance in Rhode Island and Massachusetts. And although I was deciding to resign from the World Tang Soo Do Association, I looked to them and I said, well, please stay. It's a good organization, but I need to move on. And at that time, they said that they wanted to go with me. So there was a group that left the organization along with me. And that was more or less the justification for establishing my own association, Pyong Hwa Kunin. Because prior to that, it would have just simply been Middlesex Tang Soo Do Academy, right, or Middlesex Tang Soo Do Academies. But because these were other schools that weren't Middlesex Tang Soo Do, I said, well, I needed to give it a head, if you would, an organizational heading that, sure, that they could connect to and be a part of without losing their own identities.
All right. And I think we're coming up on a Kodanja and a Dan testing coming up in the next week or so. So through the years, you've promoted how many black belts approximately? I think
well over 600 black belts have been promoted. That by some might be a small number, by others a huge number. But I'm really proud of those individuals that have come through our program and have connected through our associates in Pyong Hwa Kunin, and along the way promoted over 30 masters, and that's pretty significant too.
Absolutely.
Those that have
deep water
started to train with us and have carried on up to the 4th Dan and beyond. So that's something I'm very proud of.
It speaks to your integrity and your quality of instruction, sir. I guess we got through about your 4th Dan, and again, before you start promoting masters, or as you start promoting masters, your own rank would increase. I'm looking at your 8th Dan certificate behind you on the wall as we sit in your office. Talk about some of your journey between your Kodanja initially and to the point you are at today here in 2023.
Absolutely. So when I resigned from the World Tang Soo Do Association, I knew that I didn't have it all. I knew I needed some guidance. I needed some direction. And I certainly was networking with some different folks. And through earlier relationships with a multi-style organization, it was the Christian Black Belt Association that was headed up, and the Shio Karano Kai International was headed up by Clement Riedner. And I had tested and promoted with him through various levels, and it was a multi-style organization, which was fine. And he initially tested me for my fifth dan, which was fine, but I really felt like I needed to network with a pure Korean organizational group. So my next encounter was with Kang Lee, who is a very senior Korean master in Tang Soo Do Kwan, based out of the UK. And he certified my fifth dan, I wouldn't say tested, but cross-certified me as a fifth dan based upon me demonstrating what I was capable of doing. And it was a short-lived visit there. It wasn't a good fit that ultimately I realized after a few years. And so I moved on. In so doing, we established an international coalition, the International Goodwill Tang Soo Do Association, and we were networking with other Tang Soo Do masters and instructors from various countries, from the UK, from the Netherlands, from Greece, from South Africa. We had a coming together, and I was promoted to sixth dan under the auspices of that organizational group. We traveled around the world. We brought teams to different countries for events, and we networked. And it was a very interesting and rewarding time for us. That was something that was important to me because I had the experience early on going to big international events from as early as 1982 when I was in the Kwan, when they had world championships in the United States in Atlantic City, New Jersey. But moving forward with the World Tang Soo Do Association, every 2 years there was a big international event, and I wanted my students to have those experiences as well. So that networking, that coalition that we had was important to provide those opportunities for my students. And we enjoyed traveling and visiting different countries. It was quite interesting. Along the way, I recognized that we needed to strengthen what we were doing in the United States. So we created the International Goodwill Tang Soo Do Association without really having a United States Goodwill Tang Soo Do Association. So we did, but it was loosely formed, and we worked to solidify that and build and grow and network that group of Tang Soo Do organizations and independent studios underneath the umbrella of the United States Goodwill. So again, along the way, I still felt like I was in need of guidance and instruction, and it wasn't. I didn't feel like it was in the technical areas. I didn't feel like it was, I needed somebody to teach me how to do a low block better. And it wasn't, again, about the philosophy of what we were doing and why we were doing. Certainly there's more to learn there, but I think there was plenty of opportunities there. I think it was more along the lines of what it really meant to be a Kwan Jang and the spirit of that. And so I came in contact with Great Grandmaster Sung Ki Kim, and over several years got to know him. In fact, I first visited him on a trip to Korea. We met with him, shared some food, and chatted about our histories and our experiences and everything else. And he invited me to join his organization, and I declined. And I said, well, thank you, sir, but no, I just wanted to show my respect to a very senior Tang Soo Do Kwan master. I respect you and what you've done, but no. And over time, through many more visits and interactions, I decided that he was the person that I wanted to help to guide me as I grew as a Kwan Jang, if you will. And so I ended up asking to be part of his organization, and he accepted me as his student.
That would be
That would be around 2007, 2008.
Okay.
I would say officially 2008 would have been more of a clear-cut time frame for that.
And his organization was
the World Tang Soo Do Union.
Okay.
Which then becomes our international umbrella. So if we were to look at the different groupings, we have the World Tang Soo Do Union that the United States Goodwill Tang Soo Do Association is underneath.
Okay.
And Pyong Hwa Kunin is under the U.S. Goodwill Tang Soo Do Association.
Gotcha.
And of course, Middlesex Tang Soo Do is part of Pyong Hwa Kunin. So those are our connections.
Very nice. Obviously, Tang Soo Do is a varied and complex, or an art that has many aspects to it. I know through training with you that by your own, not to put words in your mouth, but you've never been a weapons guy. We'll say that's not your favorite thing. You certainly are capable, and I've seen you do some pretty impressive things, but more so than other instructors would be. That would be sort of their focus. What's your favorite part of Tang Soo Do? If you said, hey, okay, I can't do this anymore, but this is what I'd really like to focus on.
Sure. I agree with your statement about weapons, although I can certainly remember, making my own nunchucks when I was probably 13 years old.
Didn't we all?
And
Yes.
learning how to use those. You watch, again, Bruce Lee, and you go, oh, I got to learn how to do that. And that was cool. But they always felt like toys. It wasn't something that I would like run around and have in my back pocket. Through our training, I can remember my first experience with learning the staff, the bong, and didn't really. It was okay, but it's not what I wanted to do. So it became a part of what we had to do when we were World Tang Soo Do. And of course, working with short swords and long swords and things of that nature. Again, kind of interesting to play with, but I wasn't really a fan of the sword. Again, it's not something that I'm going to carry around with me. But hand-to-hand combat, empty-hand stuff, whether we look at it as Host and Sool, as techniques that we're dealing with wrist locks and joint manipulation, I like that. I certainly have trained in jiu-jitsu and have master's rank through the Shio Karano jiu-jitsu of Clement Riedner, and ranked to 5th Dan with him. And so I have a decent amount of knowledge and experience in that. I trained in judo and got a black belt at Shodan in judo. And that was, again, interesting. The throwing techniques and aspects of judo I enjoy. Certainly when I was younger, the idea of wrestling was interesting. I mentioned earlier that I like watching professional wrestling. So rolling around on the ground and doing that, and the experience of judo and what went with that was certainly interesting for me. But I felt like as I got older, that's not what I wanted to do. I didn't want to roll around on the ground. Shio Karano was not it's a stand-up jiu-jitsu. So it's certainly of greater interest for me, particularly as I've gotten older. So dealing with that is something that I really enjoy. Early on, most definitely loved sparring. And of course, sparring for us is a sport with rules, where you're dealing with self-defense. I mention this all the time. There's really one rule for me in self-defense, and it's get home safely. So by whatever means, and there's no rules in self-defense beyond that. Whereas all these other things have rules. I think it just opens up your opportunity.
Nice. No, that's, like I say, and again, by no means meant to insult your ability with weapons. Like I say, I just know that, well, and again, if you were to ask me, I think I might answer the same way. And I know that there's people out there that even at an advanced stage, sparring is what they're about, or they're deeper into forms. And I think it's good for people to understand that, while we need to have an understanding of all aspects, there's going to be something that you just gravitate towards more.
Sure.
And that might change throughout your life. As you said, as a younger man, sparring was a more vigorous and physical activity, and now the jiu-jitsu and the Hosen Soul is more of a good fit for you at this time in your life.
It is a good fit, but I think the connection with the Hyung that we work on, I think as we delve deeper and deeper into forms, we understand that those movements are built into and preserved in those forms, and they're hidden in plain sight, which again creates a level of excitement for me, because those are little gems that we can just go mining for. And as you practice a form that you've done 1,000 times, all of a sudden a light bulb goes off, and a moment of enlightenment. Hey, this could be that, and you find those little nuggets of gold that are precious. So yes, I enjoy doing forms. There's aspects of forms that I'm not as confident with as I would have been in my youth. Bad hips, bad knees, things start to kind of wear out on you a little bit, but still, I can still research those movements and figure out other things that connect with some of the more advanced self-defense type techniques.
Cool. Well, yeah, that's and that's something that you actually project and share with us on the floor quite a bit to our benefit. To kind of wrap things up, I was wondering, and again, to wish you a long and healthy life, but we're all going to leave this place at some point. When you have left, how would you like to be remembered, or what would you like your legacy to Tang Soo Do to be?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, that is not really a thought or a question that I've really ever pondered. Mm-hmm. Not that I think I'm going to live forever, but I hope that somebody got something positive out of what I had to share. Again, we think about impacting people in a very positive way. I hope that I've done that. I hope that what I've been able to share is going to trickle down in some way to others. But it doesn't have to be some grandiose, situation. It's just, I hope that I had a positive impact. And, even the business Middlesex Tang Soo Do, even from a marketing standpoint, we do suggest that we want to improve our community one black belt at a time. And I hope that we can continue to do that. And I hope that is carried forward, that what we've started will continue to improve one black belt at a time, the community that they're a part of.
Well, I can assure you, you have a positive impact on all your students and all the people you interact with. And I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me. I would expect that this is one of several interviews I'd like to have with you, because I know you have a wealth of knowledge and information that is definitely worth taking the time to share with our listeners. But again, thank you for your time, and I look forward to continuing to train with you for many years, and hopefully get some more of your knowledge locked down here on the podcast. So again, thank you for joining us on Tang Soo Do Focus, sir.
Certainly, it's been my pleasure, and I look forward to sharing more in the future.
All right, Tang Soo.
Tang Soo.
Thank you for listening to episode number 10 of Tang Soo Do Focus podcast, an interview with Kwan and Stephen Voelker, founder of Middlesex Tang Soo Do and the Pyong Hwa Kunin Association. Please tune into future episodes where I plan to interview other high-level practitioners from schools and academies all around the country, and perhaps someday even around the world. If you have enjoyed this podcast, please like, share, tell your friends about it, and continue to listen. Episodes should become available twice a month, and I thank you for listening. Tang Soo.